Greetings, my excellent friends. This is Ray, back with another episode of Flight Review. Today, talking about John Wick Chapter 4. Can I just start off by saying how much of a massive fan of this entire incredible franchise that I've been since the beginning, and it is hard to believe it's already 4 movies in. I say already 4 movies, and yet we've got other franchises that have done so many more movies in the last 8 or 9 years like this one has. But seriously, these movies have been absolutely incredible from day one. And of course it starts with Keanu Reeves. I've been a fan of his for a long time now. John Wick is, without a doubt, one of the 3 most iconic roles he's ever played in his career. The other 2 being Ted Theodore Logan from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Neo from The Matrix. The great thing about him and the John Wick movies, though, is that this has happened at a point in his career where he's been around for so long and he's done a bunch of different things. And a lot of this comes from what he's learned over the course of his career, not just as an actor, but also as a physical actor, a stunt actor. And everything that he's learned from Chad Stahelski, the director of these movies, when he was his stuntman back on the Matrix trilogy, he's taken into this and has really crafted this incredible piece of storytelling over 4 movies with respect to the John Wick franchise. I remember when the trailer for the first one came out back in 2013, 2014, and I think all of us that were Keanu fans were gonna give it a shot, but we weren't really expecting that much from it. And then I remember after opening weekend, we had some buddies of ours who were like, dude, you gotta see John Wick, that movie's amazing. And it absolutely blew me away from moment one, seriously. It was an incredible movie, and never would have thought that they would have built it out into a 2, let alone 4 film franchise at that point. But they really have, and they've done a fantastic job with it. I have seen each and every one of them at the theater now. I have my thoughts on each and every one of them, but here, let's talk about the most recent installment, John Wick Chapter 4. High-level thoughts on this one. It is without question the most epic of the John Wick films, and I mean that in terms of size, scale, scope, storytelling, you name it. This is the one where they went for broke. Like, you can tell that the ante kept getting upped and escalated with each and every movie in this series, and the more money they made, quite honestly, the more they were able to push the envelope with Lionsgate and get things going that they probably wouldn't have been able to do in the first film. And what we have with John Wick Chapter 4 is a culmination of the world that they have been building throughout the John Wick films, from the first one all the way through. And it's a film that doesn't hold your hand and expects that at this point you've seen the previous 3 and you understand exactly how this world works, and it just takes you on an incredible ride for nearly 3 hours that does not feel like 3 hours, at least not to me, right? But this is even different than what I said about the Batman, right? I've talked about how the Batman is nearly 3 hours. It didn't feel like that to me, but, you know, plenty of people have come out of the woodwork since and talked about how long and drab and boring it is. Not this movie. This movie is how I wish action movies were written and made, to be honest with you. Because at the heart of this tale, at the heart of all the blood and gore, at the heart of all the crazy stunts and incredible spectacles and visual scenes that we see in this film, there is a bona fide story with personal growth, character development, and all the different elements in a drama, a captivating thriller that we love to see on anything that would, quote-unquote, be nominated for an award. Let's talk about the cast of this movie for a bit. Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reeves. This is a character that he absolutely inhabits, understands, and knows how to play incredibly well. And one of the things that I've said for people that have been critics of Keanu Reeves' acting performances, his acting style over the years, is that he's one of those actors that you've got to know exactly how to cast him in roles that absolutely fit what he does on screen. And John Wick most certainly is a character that fits precisely what he does on screen. And he has enjoyed playing this character from the beginning. He continues to enjoy playing this character, and it is very obvious that when you see him doing the stunts, when you see him inhabiting this character, this is a passion project, this is a labor of love that he and Chad Stahelski have crafted out, and it comes out through every scene, through every shot, whether it's dialogue, whether it's action, whatever it is. He is aces. This is arguably the best role he's ever played in his life. Yes, even better than Neo, and The Matrix is my favorite movie of all time, so that is high praise coming from someone like me. But the other great part about the John Wick movies is that the supporting cast is always top-notch, and it is no greater than it could possibly be in this particular cast. I mean, come on, you're bringing back Ian McShane and Lawrence Fishburne, so I get my whole Morpheus and Neo reunion again, plus a little bit of Al Swearingen from Deadwood in British form, and you're adding Donnie Yen and Hiroyuki Sanada, among others. Come on, how do I possibly lose with this? Not to mention Bill Skarsgård as my villain. Again, for those of you who don't know, he's Pennywise the Clown from the most recent It films directed by Andy Muschietti. I'd also be remiss if I didn't bring up the late great Lance Reddick, who very sadly and tragically passed away just a week ago before this movie was released. It was emotional to see him on screen again, and he played his role of Sharon the way that one would expect him to play the role, the way that he has consistently played it throughout the entirety of the franchise. And there is no doubt that he will most certainly be missed, regardless of where this franchise goes in the future. And just to round out the cast, I don't know who Scott Adkins really is. I'd never heard of him until he was cast in this film, but he's pretty badass with respect to his role in this film. And so is the ever-present Clancy Brown. In fact, seeing him on screen here, working for the High Table, just reminded me of how badass he's going to be as Salvatore Maroni in the Penguin series on HBO Max. Cannot wait for that. Clancy Brown is fantastic. But I also have to give respect to newcomers Rina Sawayama and Shamir Anderson as Akira and the Tracker. Seriously, their characters, especially the Tracker, damn near stole the show, to be honest with you. And I want to see more of them in whatever direction this franchise goes, because they have built an entire world and an entire ecology here within the John Wick universe, and seeing more of both of those characters, Akira and the Tracker, would be honestly pretty awesome, especially after what they did in this particular film. So let's talk a little bit more about the writing for John Wick Chapter 4. One of the strengths of the John Wick series has been that it has been a very well written and extremely well crafted story within an action franchise. How many times have we seen action movies over the years that we have fully enjoyed and thoroughly appreciated all of the crazy martial arts, all the crazy explosions and death-defying stunts and everything that we've seen, but it's packaged in an hour and a half to 2 hours of a lazy script with pretty basic plot elements, no character development, and not really any mythology whatsoever. John Wick is the antithesis of that. The entire franchise has been that way, and Chapter 4 is just the culmination of the incredible story and fantastically deep world that they've built. I mean, seriously, the inner workings of the High Table and how the criminal underworld operates, not just in New York, but worldwide, is phenomenal. I love the fact that through 4 movies, we've seen minimal police presence whatsoever, almost none, because everything that is handled is just part of the mythology, right? It's not about cops and robbers. It's not about a world that we're even privy to as normal people in the real world. No, there's an otherworldliness. There is a suspension of disbelief to how these people operate, and it's all very mythological. It's all very honorable, and it's very much like as people would put it, a Western or some other type of hero's journey, with respect to any of the classic myths that we've ever known over the course of time. The visuals of John Wick Chapter 4. If you're a fan of this franchise and you've watched the first 3 films, in your brain you're thinking, how on earth could they possibly top what they've done as far as all of the stunt work and all the crazy action that they've done to the franchise to this point? Well, there's at least 3 or 4 separate sequences in this film that absolutely transcend any and everything that they have done in the previous 3. There's one in particular with a crazy camera angle that I don't want to give away, but I will just tell you that it reminds you of an old school top-down video game, and I cannot wait to watch the behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves and everybody else involved on how in the hell they made this particular sequence work. Because I imagine the blocking and all of the little coordination and all the placements of everything in this particular scene had to be so precise and so meticulously crafted to make that entire sequence work as incredibly well as it did. And it's just an absolute tour de force. And that's one of the things that I love about Chad Stahelski and these stuntman turned directors is they're not just giving you a visual feast in terms of the martial arts and in terms of the hand-to-hand combat and the stunt work, they're also doing some crazy, incredibly creative things with the camera. They know that they can't just lock the camera down and have it be here or there and give you a bunch of static shots. They're not boring shots at all. These are guys that, in addition to being former stunt coordinators and figuring out how to choreograph exactly where everybody's going to move when a squib goes off or whenever a kick is being placed in a particular direction. They also know exactly where to put the camera so that it is visually engaging to all of us. And they give us creativity in the form of cinematography in addition to what we're seeing with all the crazy balls to the wall action. I have nothing derogatory to say about the visuals of this film. In fact, if I were to say anything derogatory, it would just be the height of nitpicking, and I try not to do that. The score for John Wick Chapter 4 is consistent with the entirety of the John Wick franchise because Tyler Bates has been the working composer for all of it, in this case working with Joel Richard in collaboration, but still you get the vibe, the very urban vibe and sometimes very electronic vibe with some of the needle drops and other pieces of music in here, and it's a very hyper stylized score that just 100% fits the action that we are seeing on screen, which, as I've said before, is the most important part of a musical score for me. Extremely atmospheric, very ethereal in that regard, and incredibly visceral, and I have absolutely no complaints with it whatsoever. I need to go and find that score and soundtrack immediately. So my overall summary of John Wick Chapter 4. Incredible film, absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, close to 3 hours, does not feel like it, seriously. So don't balk at the runtime. I know there are a lot of people out there that all of a sudden are balking at longer runtimes. Like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they're making movies so long now. That should be a crime. They should manage their runtimes better. No, runtime should be as long as the creatives need to tell their story. And in this case, with all the action set pieces, with everything that is going on and all that John Wick has to do, the ladders and the mountains that he literally has to climb in this movie, 2 hours and 40 minutes was necessary. It really was. Because you need the decompression moments, which I absolutely think are important in a gigantic action set piece like this, to be able to steal you and give you time to breathe and go, okay, all right, let's set up what's going to happen in the next phase of the film. And I think it was very well balanced. I think it was artfully done, and it is without a doubt the most ambitious set piece of any of the John Wick films, and you can just tell that after 3 movies, Stahelski and the cast and crew just went balls to the wall and gave us everything they possibly could in this particular film. And I will say this as much as I can without giving away any spoilers. I don't know for certain if this is the final film in the franchise. Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves have made it sound in interviews like it is, and they're kind of done. But who knows, all it takes is an incredible box office from this particular film and Lionsgate really nudging them in that direction, like, hey, come on, let's keep this going. And I personally hope they do. But if this is the final film in the John Wick franchise, it is a very fulfilling and satisfying end, in my opinion. And I really can't elaborate on that much further because that would be going into blatant spoilers about how the movie ends, and I don't want to do that. But I will say this, just to warn people. There is a post-credit scene at the end of this movie. I don't remember if there are any in the previous 3, but there's definitely one here, and all I will say is that when it happened, there were people in my audience that audibly gasped. You may or may not when you see it, but just to let you know, don't leave early. I never leave movies early anyway, because Marvel didn't invent post-credit scenes. They've been around in movies for much longer than that, and since a kid, my family, we always sat through the entirety of the credits in case there were post-credit scenes no matter what. Definitely sit for this one. It's at the end. You won't be disappointed, in my humble opinion. John Wick Chapter 4, just like the entirety of the franchise, a masterclass in action storytelling with a great heart and a lot of character depth. Absolutely go see it. Thoroughly recommend it. Fantastic film. Keanu Reeves, Chad Stahelski, and the cast and crew, I salute you. You have literally made one of the greatest action franchises of all time, in my humble opinion. And whether you decide to give us more of that franchise or not, I will always have these 4 movies to enjoy, especially this one, and just how incredibly crazy, balls-to-the-wall batshit it was throughout the entirety of its runtime. If and when any of you decide to see it, I hope that you all enjoy it as much as I did, and in the event that you didn't, that's okay too, because of course, as always, it's all subjective.